Matthew 5:18. What is Jesus saying here? I'll read it from the New American Standard. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke of a letter shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. The NASB footnote next to the smallest letter says that in the Greek text, the smallest letter literally means one iota, which the NASB claims is the Hebrew letter yod, or one projection, which the NASB says is a serif. What precisely does the Greek say? Well, the Greek word used here is keria, which is the diminutive of keros. Keros means horn, and keria, as its diminutive, means little horn. That's the precise Greek word, little horn. Now let's improve on this a bit and use the word hornlet instead. Hornlet is better than the two words little horn, since hornlet is the English diminutive of horn. There, hornlet. That's as close as you can get to the literal Greek. But what did Jesus mean? The hornlets Jesus is talking about are the small protrusions that distinguish one Hebrew letter from another. Reading the entire verse, Jesus says hornlet when talking about the law. The law, of course, is the law of Moses. The law is written in Hebrew. Funny thing about Hebrew is that there are pairs of letters which are hard to tell apart. Let's look at an example of two such Hebrew letters, the letter bet and the letter kaf. The letters look the same except that the letter bet has a protrusion which kaf does not. This protrusion in bet is the hornlet. This is exactly what Jesus was talking about. Writing a bet requires 2 strokes of the pen, writing a kaf just 1. Writing 2 strokes, joining a second stroke to a first stroke leaves a hornet, and from a distance the hornlet is what your eye focuses on to tell those letters apart. This is done intentionally. The Hebrew letters I've shown you are from modern written Hebrew. The modern Hebrew alphabet looks the same as the alphabet in Jesus' time. The scrolls that Jesus read from are essentially the same as what one would read today. That has not changed. But the Hebrew alphabet underwent a significant change when the Jews were in captivity in Babylon and Persia, which was in the 6th century BC. This is what a modern Hebrew alphabet looks like. This is what the Hebrew alphabet looked like before the Babylonian captivity. This old alphabet is called Paleo-Hebrew. Moses originally wrote the Torah, Hebrew for the law, the first 5 books of the Bible, in Paleo-Hebrew. Although the shapes of the letters and the way that one draws them differ between Paleo-Hebrew and modern Hebrew, in any book of the Bible all the letters of the words remained exactly the same and are preserved in the same order. Why did the Jews replace their old Paleo-Hebrew alphabet system with a new one? In Paleo-Hebrew, the letters are much easier to distinguish than in modern Hebrew. My guess is that the modern Hebrew alphabet is much simpler and efficient to write, since it requires less strokes on average, and since so much time was spent copying manuscripts, this was worth the trade-off, and the trade-off is that it's more difficult to tell the new letters apart. The consequence of this change is that modern Hebrew relies on these hornlets. Paleo-Hebrew did not. Though small, the hornlets are critical. But back to showing more of modern Hebrew look-alike letters. Here's another example. The Hebrew letters Dalet and Resh. Dalet is 2 strokes, Resh is just 1. See the hornlet on Dalet? It doesn't appear on Resh. This protrusion is the way in which the 2 letters are distinguished from one another. If it was not there, you would be hard-pressed to tell the difference in their printed form and impossible in their handwritten form. And the letters He and Chet. See what a difference a minute stroke makes? So when Jesus said no hornlet would change, he meant that there'd be no typographical errors, no slips of the pen, no letters changed. Since there are no vowels in the original Hebrew Bible, no punctuation and no spaces between words, a change in a single letter is more likely to change an entire word than a single letter change in a language with vowel spaces and punctuation such as English. Generally speaking, single letter changes to the Hebrew Bible are more impactful. They have the potential to change the meaning of a sentence entirely. Now you see why the Burnmeister's New Testament translates Matthew 5:18 this way. You can count on this. Until planet Earth comes to an end, there's no way at all, that even so much as the tiniest letter or single stroke of the pen which distinguishes one letter from another in any of the commandments found in the Old Testament law of Moses will be disregarded or of no effect until that day when everything finally comes to an end.